So in-house recruitment, obviously I have built much stronger relationships with the CEOs, the leaders of the organization, the C-suite, and also the junior people to the middle. I understand the company as a whole way more because I'm completely immersed in it. I also am representing one company, right? So I'm effectively a brand ambassador at the same time. Simultaneously, working with a multitude of clients is fascinating, which is very stimulating. Understand a lot of different companies and building relationships with a lot of people and seeing how different companies operate and knowing what works for one company might not work for another. So they're both fabulous things, and I think it's a very good thing to be able to experience both.
Just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button before we get started. Now on to the introduction. Talent Consultancy is the career up for discussion on today's podcast. Our guest previously worked in-house and led the APAC Talent function at WPP agency Essence, growing the headcount from 200 to 600 people. During his time at Saatchi Saatchi, he successfully filled numerous C-level roles. He's currently working as the managing partner for the APAC region at DMCG Global. He's an accomplished talent management, human resources, talent acquisition professional with over 15 years of experience in leading business partnerships, recruitment strategy, strategic workforce planning and negotiation. With proven track record of working across geographies in various diverse roles, it is my pleasure to introduce Ben Roberts on today's podcast and discuss with him the journey of his job. You are listening to The Career Show, a podcast that helps you find the right career and inspires you to follow your passion. My name is Trishank Hansrajani, and I'm a student seeking answers to career-based questions that we all have. I'm here to sit down with career specialists and talk to them about the lessons learned during the journey of their career. Hello, welcome, good morning, and welcome on to The Career Show. Such an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be here.
So let's start off by talking about talent consultancies, right? People know about human resources, people know about talent hunting. What is a talent consulting? That is DMCG Global, your company where you work at. And what does a talent consultant do?
Well, we're here to basically act as the middle component between a company looking for talent and talent looking for work and trying to develop their careers and see what other options are out there. So we're a conduit to making those things happen. Companies rely on us to help grow their talent, and talent relies on us to help find them their great opportunities. So we are the ones who have the relationships, that connectivity, and are the glue between the two. So as opposed to an in-house team of talent acquisition people, we work with a multitude of clients and companies around the world, from startups to tech companies, and we help them grow with the people that they hire.
Mm-hmm. And what is the role of talent consultant on a day-to-day basis?
Predominantly, we'll be picking up briefs from different companies. So they might need a VP here, they might need an account director, or they might need a multitude of hires. And we also have a lot of candidates that are we're meeting in the marketplace, seeing who's doing interesting stuff, contacting them, giving them an opportunity of a career option that they might not have thought about, helping them maybe even move them into a different market. I mean, obviously that's a little bit different in these COVID times, but being a global network, we used to be able to have a lot of opportunities around the world that we could move people who are seeking a different experience. And we're there for candidates to consult them. They can come to us and talk to us about what do they want to do with their careers, what do they think the next step should be. They want to progress in this way, or they want to change of company that they style, that they work for. So we will help navigate them through that process as well as being a supportive ear to the companies on where we think they should be going and what kind of people they need to drive their business forward. So it's helping people grow their careers and really get the most out of their skills and opportunities.
So could I say you have two kinds of clients, that is person who's looking for a job and the companies who are looking to hire? Would you consider both of them as your clients?
Well, no, we would consider the clients, the companies, and the people that we're helping find a job, they'll be our candidates.
Perfect, correct. So the end goal is to help the normal person get a good job.
Yeah, and help the companies find the right candidates for their jobs.
Mm-hmm. So if I could ask you, what are you looking for in candidates? Does it vary depending upon company to company? I'm sure that definitely happens. But how do you find the right candidate?
Well, I mean, obviously that varies a number of things, right? I mean, each companies have their own kind of cultures. So, you've got to have a candidate that fits that kind of culture. Someone might be very successful in one kind of company, someone might not be successful in another company, even though they're the same person, but the company's ethoses are different. So it's really, we have to understand the company's ethos and what they believe in and what they strive for, and also the kind of people that they want to. I mean, different skill sets are also, people want to have people who are strong in analytics. So if you're not very good at analytics, you're not going to get that kind of role, right? So you've got to, know what you're good at to help start the process well.
Does the interview process also happen with you guys in a talent consultancy?
So each company will have their own different interview processes.
Right.
Some companies can go up to 10 interviews. They want to present business plans, case studies. Other companies will have 3 or 4 interviews, and it depends on how their process is. Generally, most companies start with like a recruiter will do a screening first, and then it will move forward through the ranks. But we'll help mediate that process throughout. So we'll be briefing the candidate, each person they'll be meeting next in the process, what that person's background is, what the expectations are. We will also set up the meeting times. We will liaise with the company. So we'll facilitate that whole scenario. But every company has their own different process and method towards that. So we get that understanding from the very beginning of the process.
Let's switch gears and let's talk about the space of innovation left in this area. The reason I say that is because recently product development is something that has been really close to me. And being in the talent consultancy space, I'm sure that you need to keep coming up with new products so that you keep hiring the best talent and you have the best resources available for you. So in terms of finding talent, do you think there is space left to innovate within the sector?
I mean, there is plenty to innovate. I think, whilst people interaction is always going to be important, if you look at a lot of the HR tech companies that are forming around the world, built around automation, built around AI, built around neuro testing, there's a whole lot of stuff, simplifying your payroll, simplifying this stuff. But so there's a whole lot of add-ons that you can put in this process. So there's always constant room for innovation. And the HR tech space is a very intriguing world with that, because companies are all adopting different ways of doing things, their own ATS systems, how they put their work out. You've still got the traditional LinkedIn platform, which is huge. So there's always going to be constant innovation. But I think with traditional recruitment, it's also going to be changing on price. Like companies, talent acquisition wasn't really a function in big organizations 15 years ago. And now it's a huge thing. So there's a lot of internal hiring going on, because using external recruiters, we generally would charge the traditional recruitment method. You would charge the company 20% of the person's salary to get that hire in. Is that model outdated? No, it still works, but the exec search model of 33% for the senior hires is still needed. But I think these are kind of ripe for a little bit of change along the way as well.
That's super interesting. That's super interesting to hear about. Let's talk about something that you have innovated. Do you want to talk about a product that you have innovated recently?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we're looking at and been seeing in the markets, especially in Asia, is that you get a lot of fast growth companies who suddenly get investment in the tech world, and they need to suddenly make 5, 10, 15, 20 hires, and they're not capable of doing that quickly internally. So we've created a model which is called Talent Partnerships at DMCG, which is focused on an embedded recruitment subscription model, whereas instead of charging a 20% fee per hire, we will charge a monthly fee, and we will also put recruiters dedicated to your business embedded within your organization. So they could sit in the office with you, they could work remotely with you, but they'll be dedicated to your hiring, represent your company. And if you need to make those 10, 15, 20 hires, you know how much you'll be paying each month for them. We recently launched this. We've had a lot of interest, and we've started to work with some interesting companies. And we feel that this model is great because it gives you clarity on how much you're going to pay, gives you the opportunity to discover some very good talent, and it's it can be very flexible. So you can have it for 3 months, you can have it for 6 months, you can have it for 12 months. So you're not going to be adding it to your headcount, and you can just plug in and play when you need it to be.
This reminds me somewhat of a Netflix subscription, right? You keep it for the shows you like.
Exactly. Then you can switch it off when you don't need it.
Yeah, no, I actually love that model. That's super interesting. That's what I was talking about, right? you always need to keep innovating to grow. This is a product development, right? Because you came up with a new product for the market, looking at the demand in the market. And
Yeah. Also understanding, our clients, some of these smaller companies that might have only 5 or 10 people, they don't have in-house HR or talent acquisition because that comes as the companies generally scale up. So we can help build that product in for them and get these people on the ground quickly so they can keep growing as fast as they hope to do so and please their investors.
To be completely honest, I love that model. Best of luck, and I hope it works out for DMGC and
Thank you
you.
very much. Yes. So, if anyone wants to talk to me further about it, they can just email me at ben@dmcgglobal.com.
Definitely, everyone. Please go ahead and check it out, and feel free to email Ben.
Interesting. You touched on Netflix before, but there's just a very interesting series that I've started watching right now on HBO called Industry, which is a UK series based on grads entering a bank. It's kind of like a Billions for graduates. It's definitely worth watching because it's about how cutthroat recruitment is at a bank, a fictitious bank in London, and these grads who only a few of them are going to get the permanent roles, and it's all about the dynamics of all this stuff and interrelationship. So it's pretty intriguing.
That sounds super interesting. I might check it out myself.
I think you should. So it's called Industry.
And I'm also going to make this a regular question on the podcast saying, do you have any shows that you would like to suggest? Because I think watching shows is also a great way to inspire learning.
Of course. And Industry is great. Because it deals with what you're looking at, right? Careers, but also how brutal it can be going into one of these kind of alpha male banks and all this. And it's a very diverse cast. So it's very intriguing, all the dynamics with that. And these are problems you're going to face. It's not all going to be nice and easy when you go into the workforce sometimes.
And especially given the market now, the reason I started this podcast is also because I want people to know the brutal, honest facts. It's not easy to get hired, and you need to know a lot before you enter. So I think shows like this are another additional step to that. So thank you for the recommendation. But Ben, let's move on and let's talk about your career journey. When we were talking a few days earlier, you told me you've worked across New Zealand, Australia, the US, the UK. Let's talk about how working across 4 different continents has been for you.
Well, I was lucky enough that when I grew up, my family moved around somewhat when I was a child. So, I was born in Morocco, I lived in Switzerland, I lived in Cyprus and Canada, and then we settled in New Zealand when I was around 11 years old. And so I think by that very standard of upbringing, I always had a sense of a nomadic lifestyle and curious about other cultures. And, it wasn't so alien for me to, take opportunities in different countries when they came up because it's something that I really enjoy doing. I think embedding in different cultures and understanding those people and learning how different countries work and the opportunities you get from them, from the food, from the climate conditions, from the countries around you. It's a very stimulating thing, and it helps you grow as a person internally. And by my very nature, I'm a curious person. I like to work with humans. I studied sociology at university, and I've always had jobs that have been very people focused. So for me, it's a discovery of things. So that I feel that stimulates me and it helps me grow. I can never see myself staying in the same country for 10, 15 years at all.
I completely relate to you because I've been moving around for the past 3 years to study myself, and I can imagine what you have been feeling over the past few years. And I agree with you, like it's hard to stay at one place, and that's a personal choice. But how has hiring people been for you in 3 different places? Is it always a culturally different thing, or are there some similarities?
Okay, so I'll pick 3 places that I've worked in that are all different from each other. So let's say London, Dubai, and Singapore. So we've got Europe, Middle East, and Asia. So London is obviously a very competitive landscape because you've got a huge population there. At the time I was working in London, there wasn't Brexit, so there was a lot of Europeans working there as well. So it's a very cosmopolitan mix. But the hiring I was working in advertising then. The hiring there's a lot of great talent there because London is seen as one of the global epicenters of the world for advertising. So you do have a really high standard and caliber of people who would like to work in your organization or you would like to hire. Going to the Middle East, it's a different story. Dubai is a very transient place. It doesn't have so much of a historical reputation within advertising industry. People usually tend to go to Dubai for 2-3 years. The Emirati, the local culture don't really work in advertising. So everyone's, it might be Lebanese, people might come from Egypt, or people might come from Europe or South Africa or the West. But so, you've got a very different kind of a talent pool of people, and it's a lot smaller, right? So it's, and the quality is probably not as high as you get in the UK. So you kind of have to adjust your standards somewhat to the expectations of what you would want there. And yeah, so that was that. And then in Singapore, Singapore is the regional hub for Southeast Asia, successful business economy here, a little bit transient from an expat side, but a lot of good local talent. It's also understanding people's drive and ambitions in Singapore. Singaporean culture, generally used to dictate that children should grow up to be doctors and lawyers and accountants. So the creative industries probably weren't seen as such a great achievement to be in. So, it's hard to find a lot of people who were, passionate about that also. But I think it's important to, you understand the lay of the land when you come here, see what the kind of work's been done before, understand what companies have been successful here and why have they been successful, and just start to get to know people in the market to get a better sense of how you should hire for you.
So what I understood out of what you said is every country has different requirements for hiring. Is that correct? That's what I understood.
Yeah, I think there's different requirements from a cultural perspective, for sure, exactly. Like the way that things to do things. It's always important to get to know the top universities in those countries, where are those people going to, what kind of companies are grads going to, why are they going to those companies? Also the processes, what's the expectation? Do people want to stay in a job for 2-3 years, or people going to a job for 5-10 years? Like, where's the, I did work in Tokyo, right? I mean, I didn't live there, but I was overseeing some stuff there, and people go there for jobs for life, right? People don't really move out of organizations. So Japan has a totally different outlook on how you manage your career than somewhere like Singapore. Singapore, especially in the millennial generation, it's kind of like job hopping a lot. Let's do 2 years at a tech company. Let's go and do 2 years at a startup. Let's go and do 2 years working in an advertising agency, so they can get the whole spectrum of skills. So it's understanding those different kind of narratives and what drives people and their ambitions.
I heard you mentioning that you do a lot of research before you get to a new place. So is that how you adapt to the changes and the requirements of every country, or are there additional steps?
Generally, before I moved to places, I'd actually started doing some work with them in some shape or form. And so I would, have a little bit of experience. So I'm not coming in blind. But definitely the first kind of 2 or 3 months when I moved to a new market, even though I'm with a job, I am focusing on lots of learning, meeting as many people I can, just getting as much, going and seeing the country, going and doing stuff, just really immersing myself into that culture to really understand what drives it. Because sitting behind a screen in a new place, you're not really going to learn anything. You need to go out and use your senses, listen, look, smell, taste, all those things are important to understand. Food is a massive thing in Singapore. It brings people together. It's about the community. It's how people grow up and share things. So you need to learn how people eat and what they eat and why they eat it, because that gives you the insight into the culture, right? And that helps your thinking moving forward on how you want to hire and understand people.
Hiring has so much to it. Like, I would never have thought that you need to immerse yourself so deep in your culture and learn about that culture before you can hire someone from that.
Well, hiring is about empathy, right? And intuition, right? So if you understand what makes a person tick, you understand what's going to make them successful. Mm-hmm. And then you can put them in an environment that's going to make them successful.
Mm-hmm. That's super fascinating. That's why I just took a pause and I was just thinking about it. Let's switch gears and let's again talk about selecting the perfect candidate, right? I'm sure you have thousands of candidates for a particular job profile. Mm-hmm. How do you know that you have found that one perfect candidate out of the thousands that you have in your resource book?
I think there's a lot of different factors in that, right? So obviously it depends on the role, the company, the candidate, where their mindset is. One thing I think is always important, because I've been in-house for many years as well, is I always knew the team of people this candidate would be working with and their personalities. So you could have the best candidate on paper, their CV ticks all the boxes, you're like, this is amazing, but their personality, the person that they have to work with, those personalities are going to clash. So therefore, it's not going to be successful for the candidate or the client or the company. So, there's a whole different things that go into making a perfect candidate. When the stars align, fantastic. When they are aligned with the company's values and they want to grow at the same time, it's their ambition now. Are they taking the job for the right reasons, or are they leaving the company they're at because they don't like it and they just will take the first thing that comes up into play? So I think the perfect candidate is the one that is going to fit into the company from a chemistry perspective, is going to fit in with the company's values, is going to be able to drive business and growth, and is going to be able to be leading a team themselves of people around them.
You mentioned that you have also worked in-house, and I wanted to quickly touch on that. What are the pros and cons of working as an in-house recruitment compared to working at a talent consultancy?
So in-house recruitment, obviously I have built much stronger relationships with the CEOs, the leaders of the organization, the C-suite, and also the junior people to the middle. I understand the company as a whole way more because I'm completely immersed in it. I also am representing one company, right? So I'm effectively a brand ambassador at the same time. Simultaneously, working with a multitude of clients is fascinating because it's very stimulating to understand a lot of different companies and building relationships with a lot of people and seeing how different companies operate and knowing what works for one company might not work for another. So they're both fabulous things, and I think it's a very good thing to be able to experience both.
But would you suggest a new graduate entering the sector? Would you advise to start off as an in-house consultant?
I think it's up to the person as well, right? I think the talent consultancy can sometimes be a little bit at a junior level. It is quite sales focused because you're always having to try and get new clients and having to get new roles. Whereas an in-house consultant might work for someone who's a little bit. If you were quite an open person, quite gregarious, quite social, and you like to meet people, that could be a good way to start. But if you're a little bit more shy or you wanted to understand the mechanisms of a company more, you could have opportunities to move into the different roles within that company. Going in-house is also a great thing, right? So they both can offer two fabulous things, but I think it's very dependent on your personality and what kind of thing you're looking for at that stage.
Mm-hmm. Earlier, when you were answering that question for me, you touched on certain skills. So I want to ask you, what skills do you think are important for a talent consultant? And what have you realized these skills are as time has gone by?
I think one of the really important skills is being able to build and forge relationships. So having a good memory for names, connectivity, being able to make people feel really comfortable within 2 or 3 minutes of meeting them, putting them at ease, because that's what you want to be able to get the best out of them, understand them better, and things like that. So being able to listen, be empathetic, be intuitive, but also be able to guide and tell people, yes, this would be right for you. No, this would not be right for you. I mean, at the end of the day, I have seen a lot of people succeed and I've seen a lot of people fail. And I think because my focus has been on the people side of the business, I do have the experience and the right to be able to tell people, hey, that's not going to work for you. This will work for you. Think about it this way, right? So we are sounding boards for people as well.
You mentioned that you are in a position where you can advise people and tell them this is right and this is wrong. So you're a partner now at DMGC, so you're at a leadership role. How has your role changed as you've gone up the ranks,
Over time, my role has changed from just kind of doing things for myself, being given stuff to do, to reporting into people, to actually building teams myself, leading teams, guiding them. So spending a lot of time on the people that I'm managing and I'm leading and telling them what to do and giving them advice and putting together the plans and the strategy which they will help execute. So, it's just a natural involvement over time. But it's a fun part of the business. I love to mentor people. I love to help people. So this is something that I've focused on a lot in my career and drive people and make them better, right? So putting a team together is a really fun thing for me because I get to put in the people that I want, that I think will work best with my style of learning and leading. And we can work together well to form a powerful alliance.
But as time goes by, you gather a lot of experience, and you gather a lot of experience by making mistakes and facing failures. Because I think that is something that is not highlighted enough in people's careers. And it is, again, one of the most brutal, honest facts about everyone's careers. Do you want to talk about one of the challenges or failures that you have faced?
I think the failure is when, you've made a hire that hasn't worked out for anyone, right? And at the time you thought it was a great one, and sometimes people kind of like change after a few months, or they leave and do something else, or they're not so committed. But I bear the brunt of that, right? And it's up to me to find someone to replace them. But also personally, you kind of got to pick yourself up and dust yourself off. But it's going to happen, but you try and limit that happening as much as you can, right? You're not just pushing anyone forward for a role. You've got to really believe why. And when you do believe in them so much and it doesn't work out, that's pretty tough. But it doesn't happen often, thankfully, and less as I get older. So it's a good thing.
So like you said, you replace it at DMGC and you're in-house as well. What do you learn out of this entire process? When something like this happens, what is the learning out of it?
I think you kind of got to look back on the whole process, see if there are any like signs along the way that it probably wasn't going to work out that you didn't pick up on. Was there some communication that went wrong? Where were the expectations misaligned? Where were the things that you can look at and go, oh, okay, well, here we should probably have listened to that when they said that, or there when we were told this, we didn't pick up on that kind of innuendo. Do you know what I mean? So kind of reevaluate the communication system to make sure it doesn't fall apart again.
Exactly, because if you don't look at these things, I'm sure this would keep happening again and again.
Of course.
Which would affect the business.
Or just change the process moving forward as well, right? Because sometimes it'd be like, well, you know what? Actually, we need to have a weekly meeting every week to update them of where we are. If we do it every 2 weeks, things fall through the gaps. They not paying attention. Like just reevaluating the whole things and doing things that you think is best for you.
How important is feedback in such scenarios?
Feedback is constant for us. We want to have more communication if we can, because we need to be updated. We need to know changes. We want to update where we're at. So yeah, constant channels of communication is extremely important.
So this is a complete change in topic. I want to ask you, do you reach out to talent or talent reaches out to talent consultancies? Both.
Right. System. Plus you've got LinkedIn, right? I mean, I'm already maxed out on LinkedIn with 30,000 connections, because that's the most you can get. So I have to go through my LinkedIn every so often and move some people out of my connections and bring people in, because you can have a lot of followers, but I like to have the connections as well, right? So you can have better contact. So yeah, obviously I get lots of people contacting me all the time, and I'm always hunting for people as well, right? So you're reading the trade press of the various industries you're in, you're looking at names, you're getting connected with people. So it's just a constant and upgrading of knowledge of people, right? It just grows and grows. It doesn't get smaller, that's for sure.
Exactly. And the reason I said that is because people should know that it is okay to even reach out to people.
Absolutely. I think that's hugely important. I mean, I always recommend people to do that. I think, if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere. It's a competitive world out there. The more people you can connect with, who can recommend you, or you can see if a friend of yours is connected to someone in a company that you want. I mean, just ask, just try and get in there. I think it's the way of the future that we should be doing more of this stuff. We have these platforms and technology to be able to do it. So we should utilize it. I mean, what's the worst you're going to get is just a no, right? You never know what door could be open from something. And it might not happen now, but it could happen in 6 months or a year's time or 2 years' time. They'll be like, I remember you talked to me here. Let's chat again, right? What are you up to these days? So never keep the doors closed. Always just keep opening them and pushing them.
Exactly. And that's the reason I asked that question, because it's so important and I'm going to keep pressurizing on this point so much, because it's not enough for me to stress on. Reach out and keep networking.
Yeah. And if you get rejected, don't take it personally. Just keep at it. Everyone gets rejected all the time. Just keep going, keep going. Because something will happen.
Mm-hmm. But Ben, it's been a great podcast. We learned a lot today from your leadership, how your career has progressed over the years, and how DMGC Global is making an impact to hiring around Asia and around the world. With that being said, I want to ask you my traditional last question. And that is, what is one advice you wish you had received when you were starting your career?
I think, one advice that I wished I'd had was, always be more open to opportunity, I guess. Like, even though I was open, like, I didn't realize how much I started my career in kind of the year 2001, and technology changed so much. So probably be more open to technology, right? So because obviously we're all kind of good at it now, but in those early days, if I'd have taken more of an interest in it then, there could have been some definitely different. My path could have been different, right? If I'd emailed Facebook in 2006 and said, "Hey, can I come and join you?" when they were a small company, right? But you didn't really know about them, didn't really think about that would grow into this big thing. So keeping your eyes open and being more aware. I mean, imagine being in the first 100 employees of Facebook, right? Just because you studied this and you work in this, I mean, look at how big fintech's getting in Singapore, right? No one was an expert on fintech 5 years ago. Now look at it. So experts can be created. You're not just born with it.
Well, I think that is a great advice to note on. I think we have a great recommendation for an HBO series as well. So check that out. Check out Ben. Check out DMCG Global. Thank you so much, Ben, for coming onto the platform and sharing your journey. It's been a pleasure discussing the journey of your job.
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed this week's career discussion. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means a lot.